Hey, everybody. I
What's
hope you
up?
found us okay over here on my channel. And I'm going to host this month, and we posted that out on Reptales Facebook page. But I'm making that announcement too now. I'll be the host this month. A couple of the guests I invited and they accepted. And so I think that's how I drew the short straw. No, I'm glad to host. I love it. And especially tonight, we've got a very special guest. I'm excited about it. Just going to say a blanket hello to everyone in the chat because I want to get right into this. Moderators, thank you for being here. Thank you for helping. Really appreciate you. Dee Dee is our producer backstage, so she'll keep watch for questions and help us with those and any other thing we need done. She's awesome. We'll bring her up at the end to say hello. And panel, Pam is sick tonight, so Pam's not here. And Mike is here, and Mike's feeling good today. He told me I checked on him earlier, so
Glad
that's
to be
awesome.
back.
Yeah, so we're glad to have you back. So check out these panel members. Their links will be coming up, and I have our guest links in the description as well as a little bit about him. But I'm going to let him tell you about himself. And it's Bob. It's Green Room Pythons. And it's a channel that I had not been subscribed to before now. So I was looking for, and his content's amazing. But anyway, let me get to him and you'll find out yourself. So, oh, I forgot our mission statement. I see Susie squinting at me. As you know, that we are a group of fish keepers who also keep reptiles, and we don't often get to share. I do. I just do what I want. You share those reptiles as much. There's more reptiles on mine than fish, but we don't get to share those a lot. And the audience is really known us as fish channels primarily. So this is a way that we can all come together, the four of us, and have a stream. We don't have a channel, so we share our channels about. We do have that Reptales Facebook page. That's where you'll find announcements and the videos simulcast over there and that kind of thing. But
Almost
our
100 members.
almost, so check it out if you haven't. So get us to 100 tonight on that Facebook page. But our focus is on people that are thinking about getting into reptiles, or maybe have reptiles and they have questions, they need help now. So we will have some of those people on at some point. But right now we're having on people that are experienced, that can share and teach, and that's our big focus is teaching and learning. And we're all here to learn too. Definitely I am, because I've only been in a couple of years. So all right, so let me see. I have to go figure out how to bring him up. He's back there. There he is. Welcome back, Bob.
Hey, you got me. Well done.
Welcome back.
There we go. Hi, everybody.
What's up,
Uh,
Bob?
I'm gonna bring you up large just while you're talking about us, and
Okay.
if you want me to take you down back again, let me know, and I will.
Yeah. However you want to do it is totally fine. Hi, everybody. Um, so, do you guys have specific questions, or you want me to?
We have some stock questions, a bunch of them from the
Oh, we got
panel.
lots of questions, but
Yeah,
what
yeah,
about maybe a little bit about yourself first?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm Bob Bledsoe. My channel is Green Room Pythons, and I have a channel about primarily ball pythons, but I also keep super dwarf reticulated pythons, and I've got a black-headed python. And it's all about sort of the care and behavior and training. I target train a lot of these snakes. I work as a comedian and an actor, so I try to keep I try to keep it really informative, but also funny, so and entertaining.
Awesome. Is that
Somebody's already answered.
yeah?
Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
guess.
go ahead.
This young lady here, there's a good reason that I brought Tiger Lily out here. She's a year old,
What a great
almost
name.
exactly a year old, and
Yeah.
she is calico, which is basically another same as sugar, pretty much. Not pastel though, but she hatched out here last year, almost exactly this time, and she is a combination. Her dad is 3 genes, and her mom is 3 genes, and she got all of them.
Oh,
She's a combo of
Wow.
6 genes,
Beautiful.
which is crazy, and so the reason that I brought her out is because I repeated that pairing again this season of the same male and female snake, and those eggs are hatching in my incubator right now as we speak. So it'll be interesting to see the difference between that clutch and this one that she hatched out of. I kept 2 last year as holdbacks. So
And how can you tell when they hatch out like this that they have the 6 genes?
well, it's tough. You kind of have to, like, I'm not even sure with her. I think she has all 6, and it's basically you compare with the other snakes. So the other holdback that I kept has 4 out of the 6 genes, and so if I compare what she looks like based on what this one looks like, it tells me that Tiger Lily probably has all 6. But when it's that many genes, it gets so muddled that you don't really know some of them until you breed them. You know, there's a few genes that I'm absolutely sure that she has. She's definitely spot nose, calico, orange dream, Enchi, asphalt. There's a sort of obscure gene called extreme gene that she probably is, but I'm not quite sure.
She seems
Wow.
very friendly.
She's
She
beautiful.
is very well socialized and going through my beard right now.
She's in your
Yeah.
beard. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, she's well socialized and fairly well target trained, which is cool.
I
So-
just want to jump in. I'm sorry, Bob.
No, it's all right.
I'm
Go for
sorry.
it.
Just real quickly, and thank Jenny Lynn. She's on saying that you have several beautiful snakes, and she actually reached out to me, and she's a new subscriber to you, and told me that, suggested you that you'd be an awesome guest. So I watched a couple of videos, and I'm like, she's not kidding. So that's when I reached out to you. So I told him that you sicked me on him, Jenny Lynn. So there you go. But if anybody knows of somebody, let us know. If you want to see a guest, let us know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Jenny, thanks for that suggestion. And Jenny just joined my Patreon too, which is really cool. I just saw that today.
Wow.
And what state do you live in?
I'm in California. I live in Los Angeles, Burbank.
Oh. That sounds exotic to me. I'm over in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. Not as exotic.
That's cool. Pennsylvania's cool. East Coast is great.
Tennessee rocks. Listen, I noticed on your videos that you do a lot of, or at least those that I watched, you have a lot of behavior and that kind of thing about the snakes, which I'm really fascinated with. I'm only been keeping snakes 3 years, I guess, so really into that kind of stuff. So can you talk just a little bit about what got you interested in the behavior of them and observing their behavior and interacting on that level?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been, I'm just into animals. I love all animals, and since I was a kid, that's kind of what attracted me is the behavior of these animals, and reptiles are so far from what we are. They act so differently, and they're motivated by things that are so different than what a dog or a cat or a human would be motivated by. And it's just fascinating to me to sort of try to unlock that. What snakes are you keeping?
Right now, I started out with a friend that passed in the fish fam, and no one wanted his ball python, so I got him, and he's a big old guy now. He was about a year, and so he's 4. So I've got a couple of other ball pythons that are not commons. Got an African brown house snake that I absolutely love. I've got a green African bush snake, and I love it because it mimics the mambas. I think that's all my snakes. I've got other reptiles. No, I've got a whole bunch of corn snakes. Sorry, I've got 5 now. So.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
And that's
it's so funny that you forgot your group of 5 corn snakes.
I'm looking right now.
I got those too.
I know. That's why I don't have any kids. I would leave one in the store, I guess.
That's great. That's great.
A couple of questions from Dan Slee. Didi's letting me know. He wants to know how long you've been breeding ball pythons. And his other question is, if you're in Southern California, did you know our fish family friend, George, known as aqua balls, the water and the snakes, so aqua balls?
I don't know. I don't know that. Is that a channel?
Yeah, he's a ball python breeder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I don't know that one.
He's got a whole bunch.
last year was my first year breeding. It was kind of a COVID project. I am a touring performer, and I try to be in LA most of the time during the week, because I work in TV and film when the opportunities come up. But I tour on the weekends, and so I hadn't gotten into anything serious with snakes because I have snakes because I can tour, because snakes don't eat every day, as most people know. So I can leave them, but I hadn't gotten into breeding because that's so much more involved to get that set up. And I thought, well, as long as everything is shut down for COVID and I'm not touring for this foreseeable future, I can start this. I can do this. So last year was my first season.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm new to breeding. I try to keep my channel not so much breeding heavy, just because I don't have the breeding experience. I'm more of a like we talked about, behavior training. I do things. I think I keep my snakes a little bit differently than a lot of people do. I usually in the morning I open up the tubs of my biggest ball pythons and let them roam. They can be out for the day if they want. They just kind of wander around or curl up under my couch, whatever. And then I have, I'm going to move my camera here. And then I've got this ladder right here that my super dwarf reticulated pythons hang out on.
Oh, wow.
And,
Not even in an enclosure, just chill out.
Well, they don't live there, but I put them on. So I have one right now that's sleeping up top, and she's been up there since 9 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
And when I'm done with this live stream, I'll put her back in her enclosure. But they, I watch them because they're yearling super dwarf retics, and they're not big enough to just free roam. They'll get themselves lost.
Oh.
So I make sure that they stay on the ladder. But usually, if they curl up and fall asleep somewhere, they're going to be out for the day, pretty much.
Yeah. Jenny Lynn wants you to talk about your target training.
Oh yeah. So target training. I'll use this target because Tiger Lily here doesn't know this target, but basically, it's very simple. You basically associate this with food, and once they know that the target, this target, or I have a group, once they see that coming, so you either leave it at that and just let them know that food comes only when they see the target, and that is almost like tap training, but it's kind of the opposite of. So, and I'll explain that really quick. Tap training is if you have a snake that is very food motivated, and they always come out of the enclosure, like every time you open their enclosure, they're lunging for food. You can use a hook. I don't have one within reach, but you can use a hook or anything and just tap them to let them know that they're not being fed. So that's a pretty common way to train a snake. And many keepers have been doing this for years, and also claiming that snakes aren't smart enough to be trained, but they do tap training. So, but they go, oh yeah, reptiles aren't smart enough. They can't think that way. But so what you can do with a target, for one thing, is do the opposite. You, rather than train them that they get tapped when they're not being fed, you train them that the only time they get fed is when they see this target. And they learn that pretty quickly. But I take it further than that and have them interact with the target. So they need to follow it somewhere and touch it with their nose or their tongue before they get fed.
I do that with my parrot. That's very interesting.
Say that again.
I do that with my parrot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, parrots can do so much stuff. Their mental capacity is insane.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's just like how you would do with any of these snakes. Dee Dee, yeah, it's different. I mean, different kinds of snakes have different targets just because I've done it that way, but you don't have to. I could use this for all my snakes, but as it is, my super dwarves and my black-headed python get the blue target, and then I have a green one back here. I just was experimenting with different targets, and I ended up with two different ones. So my ball pythons use this green target. So,
okay.
But the super dwarves are this is a super dwarf reticulated python is think of, if you know what reticulated pythons are, they're the second largest snake in the world. They're massive, and they're the only snake that if you ever hear of a snake actually eating a human,
Oh my!
that's a reticulated python.
Did you hear that, Dee Dee?
Yeah.
They're huge. I mean, they're not eating big humans, but occasionally you'll hear of like some kid in the Philippines, or a very small adult in the Philippines gets eaten by a retic. It's crazy. But they're very common to have in the pet trade because they're incredibly smart. They're considered the second smartest snake in the world. Now, whether that's true or not, who knows? Because how do you measure that? But they are highly intelligent. So, but a little bit ridiculous to keep. You need an enclosure that's the size of a living room, basically, if you're going to keep them right. So, there are localities of reticulated pythons that are dwarf and super dwarf that are, it's the same kind of snake, but they just grow much, much smaller. So, I have a couple super dwarfs that I'm raising up right now, and you get, in a smaller package that's more manageable, you get this incredibly smart snake. So Echo, who is currently sleeping at the top of the ladder right now, she knows that her target hangs right here, and she comes across the top of the door and comes down and puts her head on that target, hoping that I will reward her with food when she does that.
How big do the dwarfs get?
Well, there's a massive range of how big or how small they grow. I have, and it's based on locality, and it's also based on just kind of genetics, like how big the parents were. I have two of the smallest locality that you can find. So the guess is that they will get probably 7 to 8 feet. And about, they're much thinner. They're a semi-arboreal snake. So much thinner than a ball python. But if you can imagine a 7 or 8 foot snake curled up, but weighing about the same weight as an adult ball python. So, a big adult ball python. So figure 4,000 grams or something like that. That's a very small. These are really, the two that I have are really small localities. So, you can have dwarf and super dwarves that are much bigger than that too. You know.
What you've listed several snakes. What all reptiles do you have?
That's it. I just keep pythons. I have a bunch of ball pythons and the 2 super dwarves, and I've got one black-headed python that I'm raising up, and I'll get a male for her, and I'll get a male retic for the 2 super dwarves that I have. So I've got a couple males that I need to get in the next year or two. But that's it right now. A larger group of ball pythons and a small group of the other 2.
Those black-headed pythons are gorgeous.
Yeah, they're really cool, and totally different than any other python. They're complete. They're more like a colubrid snake. They're really interesting.
I heard that, Mike. Mike and I, even when we don't think about it, get the same reptiles. Uncanny. You'll say, "Guess what I got this week?" It's what I got this week. So
sometimes on the same day.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
When you get that mail, will you buy that online? Will you get it at like a Repticon, or do you belong to a club?
I know a couple breeders, so I probably will be getting it through a breeder who's a friend of mine that produces them. So I try to get my snake. I actually did buy her at a show, but I try not to do that. I just got a great deal on her last year. But I try to buy from breeders that I know, and usually they are out of town. So this, if I'm buying a snake, it usually gets shipped to me. So
nice. I had something right on the tip of my tongue. Which is your favorite? Obviously, the ball pythons.
What's my favorite species?
Yes.
If I only could keep one species ever, it would be a super dwarf retic.
Wow.
And that might be out of not even out of the 3 species that I currently have. That might be out of everything. And the reason is, I wish she wasn't so sleepy today, because a lot of times in my videos, I usually have them climb. Well, not usually, but a lot of times I have both of them on the ladder while I'm standing here recording a video, and they're trying to climb onto me. Like you see them reaching down and trying to interact. A ball python doesn't usually come to you to interact with you. but these retics are so curious about what's going on, and they have no fear. You know, they're not afraid or anything, so they'll just hang out with you, you know, and then they'll leave when they want to leave. You know, they'll crawl on my shoulder and crawl around, and then they'll go back on their ladder and whatever they want to do.
Wow.
But they're just really, really smart.
What are your thoughts on Western hognose?
I love them. They're so cute.
That's
I've
my
never kept them.
favorite.
I've never kept them before, but they're adorable little snakes. Really cool.
Yeah.
Patrick, also known as Dragon Lair, wants to know if you know Lucas at Centralian Pythons.
I know of Lucas. I don't know him personally though. He does raise blackheads, and he also raises. He's got the prettiest Woma python that I've ever seen by far.
Wow.
He's got this insane Woma. Blackheads and Womas are in the same family. They're both Aspodides, and basically a Woma is a blackhead without the blackhead, and they're quite a bit smaller. But yeah, Lucas has some cool animals for sure.
Well, what advice would you have? Because we do have a lot of people in here that don't keep reptiles, or they keep them and we don't know about them. What advice would you give someone that's thinking about getting a reptile?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is that a lot of people look at reptiles as beginner species. You know, they sort of go, whatever reptile they're looking at to buy, whether it's a bearded dragon or a ball python, it's usually something, maybe a corn snake, something that's readily available. They think of it as a beginner species, and they're like, oh, I'll cut my teeth on this and hopefully it works out. But really, these are exotic animals, and as common as it is to see ball pythons in the pet trade, it's an exotic animal. And my feeling is that if you're going to keep an exotic animal, you should be as much of an expert as possible in that animal before you have it. So that's just doing a ton of research. I talk about this occasionally on my channel. I think that there are some sources of research that are better than others. YouTube is kind of a crapshoot because anybody can start a YouTube channel with any amount of experience. But my feeling is that person is standing there talking to the camera, and a lot of times, because you're seeing them talk, you're watching them rather than reading something that somebody typed. You can kind of get a sense as to whether this person knows what they're talking about or not, and that helps a little bit. But I have a problem with Facebook groups.
Don't we all?
I mean, not the group itself, not even the platform of Facebook itself, but the fact that if somebody comes in with a question about an animal, everyone that reads that question is going to just take a shot at answering it, whether they know what they're talking about or not. And a lot of times it's just repeating stuff that they've heard other people say that's wrong information. So, I think just doing research, but being really careful about where you're getting your information from, and getting it from different sources so that you can kind of compile everything that you've heard and go, all right, this I've heard a number of times and it makes sense. These fringe theories don't really make sense to me anymore because this makes more sense. You know what I mean? You kind of have to do that. It's not like it used to be where you open an encyclopedia and read about the animal,
No.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my advice there. You guys, also, by the way, when I do my live streams, I do snakes and scotch. So that's what I'm doing today. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
So I'm drinking a Lafroig right here,
Nice.
which is one of my favorite scotches.
I do fish and coffee.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Fish and coffee is great. I love coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee. I'm just, by the time I do my live streams, I'm done with my coffee for the day.
Right. Woo.
Your how is it working with a family member? I know your brother, is his name Kent?
Kent, yeah.
How
So
is
Kent
it working
is
with the brother helping you?
Kent is the only employee here at Green Room Pythons. He is the cameraman. He films on a VHS camcorder from 1988, and he's terrified of snakes.
Oh boy.
So so we get a different perspective from Kent. And people, that was going to be, when I started the channel, it was going to be just a funny bit that I was going to do for a couple episodes, but people really liked it. So we added more Kent to the show. And now there's a Kent's Corner because people demanded to see more Kent.
So what about people like Kent who want to get to be more acquainted with snakes? How does one go about doing that?
That's a great question. I have a series on my channel called Introducing People to Snakes Who Are Afraid of Snakes. And it's where I get my friends that are good on camera. They're either comedians or perform, people that I know are going to be decent on camera that are also afraid of snakes.
Right.
And I have them come over and I answer all their questions about snakes. But to answer your question, the one thing that I would not recommend, and this is a really common thing, people that are afraid of snakes will start doing some research, and they're afraid of snakes, but they're also fascinated. And they'll go, I kind of want one, but I'm scared of them. But if I get one, I'll get over my fear of snakes. Oh. That is not the case. That is probably not what's going to happen. Now, I'm sure it's happened with some people, but so many times I see where people will get a baby, and then that baby grows from, maybe it's 100 grams when they got it, and now it's 700 grams. The snake is 700 grams, and still not too bad. But in another year, she's going to be 1,500 grams.
Oh my!
And then you've got a snake that you might be a little afraid of, So it's not being afraid of a little baby snake is one thing, but that doesn't mean that you got over your fear of snakes. That little baby snake's going to get bigger. And so what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that they're afraid to do anything with the snake. And so the snake kind of gets neglected. It might not get its water changed as much as it needs to. It might not get fed as regularly. Snakes can go a long time without eating, but still, they should be fed every few weeks at least, or every couple of weeks, depends on the snake. But so I don't recommend people buying a snake so they can get over their fear of snakes. I have a fear of spiders. I am not going to buy a tarantula to get over my fear of spiders. It does not make sense for me to do that, And I know it's an irrational fear, just as people's fear of snakes are also irrational. But my feeling is if somebody had if somebody has a friend that has snakes, just handling their snake and doing research, just learning, because I find that when you learn about something that you're afraid of, that fear usually goes away. So, and that's the whole premise behind that series on my channel of introducing people to snakes who are afraid of snakes, is to from some snake, so that people just basic thing, and all the misinformation that maybe was running through their head, which is Kent is full of misinformation, and that's one of the reasons why we have Kent on the show. Is he's got all this crazy misinformation about snakes that we can then talk about, and it as people learn, they get more comfortable. So
yeah.
Grasshopper is asking, have you ever been struck by a snake when training it?
Not when training it. I mean, I have been bit. This one up here thought I was food the other day and bit me. But it's not a big deal. It doesn't, I would rather get bit by a snake than almost anything else. A bird causes way more damage than a snake. A hamster causes way more damage than a snake. So there's only 2 snakes in this room out of, I have 18. Well, actually, because I've got 7 hatching, I guess I have 25 snakes now, but basically 18, let's say. Out of that, I only have 2 that bite. And the only reason that they bite is because they're food motivated. They think I'm food. I don't have any that are defensive or afraid of humans. But I do have another one that's the other super dwarf has never bit me, but she's so well target trained that when she sees this target, she gets so excited that she'll strike the target, and it causes a problem because she'll strike and wrap, and then I can't get her to let go. So that's a problem sometimes, but she's never bit me before. But really, for those of you who are not, who don't know snakes very well, the thought of a snake bite is very scary. And I think it's because it happens so fast, it startles people, but it really causes almost no damage. You just don't feel it. Their teeth are so tiny and sharp that this sounds worse than it is, but think about it this way. If you get bit by a dog, you know, we think that dogs have sharp teeth, but if you look at a dog's tooth, it's really not sharp. Like it's dull right there at the end. So what happens when it bites you is it pinches your skin hard enough to break the skin open. And that's an injury. Like that hurts really bad. Versus the teeth on this snake, who would never in a million years use them, but the teeth on her are so sharp that if she bit me, it would go through my skin like butter and I wouldn't feel it. It's like having the smallest little needle. And sure, there will be a whole, you know, 2 full rows of them, and you'll see the little red mark of where she bit, but you really don't feel it.
And how do you remove the mouth once that's happening?
There's a couple ways to do it. If that only happens, a snake that is bite, and I should say, we're talking about pythons. You know, different snakes are different, but there's only the 2 reasons that a snake would bite. They either think you're food, which is relatively common with pythons. They have heat pits, so sometimes they bite without realizing what the warm thing is in front of their face. And the other thing is that the other reason is that they feel so threatened that they want to strike first and do the first punch. So you know, they feel like they're about to be killed, which is pretty stressful for a snake. But the point is that if they're giving a threat bite, they're trying to fight, they're just going to bite and let go. And then you know that you've got a really scared snake on your hands. But a food bite is when they bite you and wrap up because their brain hasn't kicked in and they're just in food mode. Snakes kind of live in these modes, and one of them is food mode. And when they're in food mode, they're not thinking at all. So they're not even considering whether they can even swallow this arm that they just bit, you know? And so I have, I wish I had it in front of me. I don't. I have a little spray bottle of whiskey in it that you can just spray in their mouth, and that'll make them let go. The other thing, which is a weird little trick, is you can take the end of their tail and just chew on it like you're eating corn.
What?
You know, isn't that weird? So you just
out of here.
Just kind of like that, not hard, like about as hard as you would bite your finger without it hurting.
I've heard that.
And the snake just kind of goes, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And they'll let go.
Yeah.
Because it's such a weird thing. They like it just rewires everything. They just go, "What is happening right now?" And they'll let go. So
my mind is blown right now.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, but even so, I mean, I have a 14-year-old girl that comes in and takes care of my snakes when I'm out of town. If I'm gone for a week or so, I have her come in and change waters, and she knows all my snakes and everything. And she's been bit by the black-headed python before. And that's a very hard bite. Black-headed pythons often don't constrict. They just bite their prey and kill them that way. So they have incredibly strong jaws. And she's been bit by Maya. And just to illustrate how this is not a big deal, her first reaction was, "Oh my God, Maya's biting me. Get the camera." So her mother is deathly afraid of snakes. And her mom was asking where the nearest hospital was. And I'm trying to calm her mom down while Lucy's going, "Get the camera, get the camera." She's biting me.
It's funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is funny. I found out how sharp those ball python teeth are. I was bit once, but it was my fault. The snake was in shed, and I had a mouse down there, and I wasn't watching what I was doing, so it hit my finger, and it scared it to death. Poor little thing. It's the one I got several years ago, and he's big now, and scared him to death. He jerked away so fast. But I've been having to force feed one of my new ball pythons, and that is not something that's fun to do. And I've gotten a little better at it. I've done it 3 times now. But if you actually, that's why you use a pencil with a soft eraser or something to gently work the mouse down. If you get your finger.
So let's talk about that. What's going on with that snake?
Well, it's a G-stripe ball python. I got it at one of the big box stores maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And seemingly loves to be held, never has struck at me. That's one of the reasons I got it, because it was so great in the store. And just a beautiful ginger color. It's not really a ginger genetically, but a beautiful snake. But anyway, and I call it a girl. I haven't sexed it, but it ate after about 2 weeks, and it was fine, and it was in real good shape when I got it. And so then it ate again in about a month. So I was getting a little concerned, but it ate. and then it didn't eat for maybe 6 weeks. And as I began to start weighing it, its weight, continued to go down. So, I mean, it wasn't maintaining. So,
what's the approximate weight right now?
oh gosh, you would ask me.
I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of whether it's a hatchling or a little bit bigger
Oh,
than that.
no. It's not a hatchling. It's probably a 6-8 month old snake, maybe 9 month old snake.
Okay.
But
smaller than this one though, probably. Yeah.
it is smaller than that one. Yes.
Okay.
I can get it out right now and show you if you want to see it. But
okay, I'm only seeing me, by the way, in the thing. I don't know if that's what everybody's seeing.
Yeah, it is. And if you want me to take you down, I will.
No, it doesn't matter. Just if you're going to show yourself or show your snake,
I'll have to do it.
Do you want my advice on that situation, that feeding situation?
Yes.
Okay. I don't ever want to give unsolicited advice, but the thing is, unless it's a hatchling that has not taken meals before, if the snake knows how to eat, they'll eat eventually. There are people that say that a ball python will starve themselves, and I promise you they will not starve themselves unless they have an underlying medical condition that's preventing them from eating. That's the only time that they would starve themselves. So when somebody says, I had a ball python that stopped eating and it starved itself to death, it had something else going on, because these snakes just don't do that. Now there are right out of the egg snakes that will fail to thrive, and so that's when we assist feed. But the general rule is that if a snake has taken a meal ever, like struck on its own and eaten a meal, not to assist feed unless a vet requires it, unless you've taken it to a vet and they require it, because that snake at 6 or 8 months old, it could go another 6 or 8 months without taking a meal.
Oh, wow.
And they'll lose a little bit of weight. But if they're losing, like if it's 6 or 8 months and they're losing a lot of weight, that's a good indication that there's something else going on with the snake that maybe a vet needs to look at.
Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I was just going to say, I have a snake in this bioactive enclosure right behind me here. It's a full grown male, and he went 4 months last year. He usually eats every meal. He loves to eat, but he stopped eating for 4 months last year, and he lost he was probably 1,000 grams, maybe a little over 1,000 grams, and he might have lost 100 grams in that 4 months. And then he just started eating again, and now he eats great. I expect him to probably go off food again. It's probably going to be his annual thing, because sometimes they
MO.
do that. Yeah.
I researched it pretty thoroughly because it's not something that I wanted to do, but she had lost almost a third of her weight. She's gained a little bit back, and she looks a little better, but she still looks bad. She was tenting. She wasn't staying hydrated. I did manage to get a small specimen. She wasn't pooping, but she did finally, and I took that to my vet, who's not an exotic vet, but they can look for parasites, and they know, if there's something in the stool, and they said they didn't see anything, no worms or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I decided to go ahead and begin force feeding her. And she's such a gentle snake anyway. She didn't mind. She kept it down. I tried to, assist feed. I tried that at first, but then she wouldn't keep it in. She would spit it back out. So I just had to go ahead and gently do the force feed and get it down, past the swallowing and down just a little bit. And I don't think I hurt her at all. I never saw any blood. And of course, it's a big thing for a snake to swallow a mouse bigger than it is around. So she did fine, and she's done fine all 3 times. I've only been doing it once a week, but some of the people that I see doing the videos that are the big snake channels, that own zoos and stuff, say feed them twice a week. But I'm just afraid to do that.
I wouldn't even do it once a week, because here's why. Because force feeding, even if they don't show signs of stress as you're doing it, that might just be them sort of shutting down. But the reason that the general rule is to not do it if you know that they know how to eat, the reason that you don't want to do it at all really is because you could cause enough stress for them to not ever want to eat again. And that's the big risk that you run. Now, you may be okay with this, with what you're doing. that's not gonna happen with every snake. You just run the risk of that. So, but what I would do, and this is what I did, I had to assist feed 2 hatchlings last year to get them going before they ate. And so what I would do is I tried, I think, 7 meals. I just looked up the records from last year. I tried to offer them each 7 meals. And when they wouldn't take those 7 meals, I then, because they were starting to lose weight and they hadn't had a meal ever in their life, I started to assist feed. And what I would do is I would assist feed 1 meal, and then 5 days later I would offer. And if they didn't take it, then 5 days later I would assist again. And then, because these snakes should eat about every 5 days,
Right.
but it's okay if you skip. So I still was offering in between the assist feeds, because that's such a stressful thing for the snake to go through, that eventually they'll start eating again, or start eating on their own, so it's a tricky thing. Some people have had luck with it. I would imagine that you'll probably have luck with it. It'll work, but I wanted to give that information in case anybody's watching, so that they know that that's not you. The best thing to do is bring your snake to the vet, and have the vet suggest that you assist feed before doing that, because they can go a long time without eating and they're just fine.
I'll get her out in a minute and show her. Dragon Lair made the excellent point that if the humidity or temperature are off, they might stop eating. And
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I monitor. Everybody's got their humidity and their thermometer and all that, so I monitor that closely. And like I say, she ate twice for me in the first 2 or 3 months. So I don't know what's up. So, but I'll get her out in a little bit. I'm going to bring you down with the panel. Here we go.
Cool. Let me I tell you what, let me trade snakes really quick. I'm gonna get
Awesome.
Remember what Tiger Lily looks like. I'm gonna put her back, and I'm gonna get her sister that is the same genes but just 2 less. And look at how different she looks. Hang on a second.
I should have left him up, shouldn't I? I'll bring him back up because I'm getting up anyway. There, y'all can look at the door. Somebody talk.
Yeah, I'm worried about Jade, my normal ball python I got a couple weeks ago. She hasn't eaten yet. But the only food that I have that's big enough for her is what I feed Dusty, rat weanling. So I'm thinking about getting the bigger mice to see if that entices her.
Too. Wow.
Yeah, so she
That's, completely different.
Yeah, so she has 4 out of the 6 genes. But yeah, I mean, completely different looking snake, right? I'm on a video higher clutch babies, but I'm in touch with all the people that purchased the babies from me, and I'm getting video from them and updates from them on the clutch. So I'll be doing an entire ball python clutch 1-year update video in the next few weeks.
Beautiful.
I don't think you have to worry about that, Dragon Lair.
What you saying? Q, no biting tails.
No biting the tails while you're holding a snake. No, I have my sights
Comment but not know about pythons are notorious for going off food. Yeah, I know that, Dragon Lair, but when they lose, a third of their weight, that's what. And anyway, I'm gonna bring her up or bring myself up here. And
yeah,
she's in shed. I didn't realize that.
That's actually, I mean, that is concerning for sure. If that snake lost a third of its weight, that's a thing, to be worried about.
And now this is her demeanor all the time. She's not acting, any different. Now she had gotten almost lethargic when she at her lowest
She
point.
looks really skinny.
Yeah, compared to what she was, but she's gaining weight back.
Yeah, it's hard to see. Can I see the rest of her body? Like not just her neck, her back.
Let's go wrap around my finger. Come on, girl.
Yeah, so she's pretty skinny.
Yep.
so-
But she looks better. So See how
what's
wrinkled-
her humidity at? What do you keep her humidity at?
Right now it's at 78.
Okay.
Right now.
What are you using to measure that, to monitor it?
I've got one of the little hydrometers, electric ones. I don't like the other. I've got
like
the
a
electric.
digital.
Yes.
So it's a digital one, not an analog. Okay.
And that I did move one from the African house snakes next door over, and it was the same. It changed, and it was the same humidity. So I did check to make sure it was working right. I thought about that, as well as the temperature, but
the humidity thing. I mean, she definitely isn't getting enough humidity somehow. 78 is about, like, you want it around 80.
That's what right now I've got the lid off. So, anyway, I missed her too. I've got some new little frogs. Yay. And I miss them 2 or 3 times a day. So I missed her at least once, and she seems to like it because she is so dry. So I worry about her being dehydrated. I don't.
Yeah,
see
I mean, not
water.
eating a lot. A lot of times they get their hydration from the food that they eat. So if she wasn't eating, that would be less hydration that she's getting. But she, I would say that wherever she's sitting most of the time is probably not 80. If it's around, they say a lot of times you'll see people say keep ball pythons at 50% humidity, and some some will shed okay like that. Not many though. So 60, I tell people 65 to 80, and when they're in shed, be right at 80. So
I try for 75 to 80 is what I try for.
Yeah, that's perfect.
But anyway, thanks for looking at her. But these guys have seen her. Oh, she gave me little hugs, little squeezes. She's a sweetie, but she's never struck, and I got her just after holding her 5 minutes at the store. So, sweetie.
Yeah, anyway, that's great.
Thank you for your advice. Yeah, she's shedding. I'm going to soak her after this. Maybe that'll make her.
Yeah, or give her a humid hide. Do you have a humid hide that you can give her?
I don't have one. She's got a water bowl she can get in there, and she's got just a drinking water bowl. And her favorite place is to lay. I've got a big pothos vine in there in a big pot in the middle, and that's where I just brought her out of. She's got her warm spots, and that's her cooler spot, and she loves to be in that pot in the top of it. So, and of course I have to water it every couple of days. It's a vine, so I don't know.
If you got her just a plastic bowl with a like a food container with a lid, and throw some damp sphagnum moss in there, and cut a little hole in it so she can crawl in, that might help that shed.
That's a great idea. I didn't think about that. Thank you.
She could just have that all the time. Like normally you wouldn't have it all the time, but when you're worried about her getting enough hydration, it might be good to just keep a humid hide in there for her to use.
Thank you. That's awesome advice. Appreciate it. Sorry. Didn't mean to take over, but
No, it's good. This is what we like.
Yep.
That's why I love this.
That's what we're here for.
So speaking of hygrometers, and I know, Bob, you said it like nonchalantly, but I think our audience, and especially the new people, it'd be good for them to hear. They make some hygrometers that are really worthless, and others are much better. So maybe if one of you guys could explain a decent hygrometer that you could trust.
Yeah. So when you get your snake at a pet store, which there's not many pet stores that it doesn't matter. I mean, you can get your snake at a pet store, it's fine, but chances are the gear that they give you to go with your snake is not going to be, it's worthless pretty much. So usually it's one of those analog dial things that you stick onto your enclosure. You should never have adhesives in your enclosure with a snake, because the snake will get into that adhesive. So just for that reason, you shouldn't have those, but also they just don't work. There's a brand that I use. I'm using a lot more called SwitchBot now. And, but the other brand that's decent is Govee, and you can get those on Amazon. I have links in all of my recent videos to, I think, both SwitchBot and Govee. And it's a thermometer hygrometer. The thermometer part of it is accurate, but I don't worry about that as much because I have a temp gun. I think anytime if you keep reptiles at all, you should have a temp gun to be able to measure the surface temps. Yeah, exactly.
I do
Where-
for my aquariums. I just go beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's the hygrometer located? I keep it about 2/3 up usually in all of them so that I can see that, but also not at the top, and I don't want it right at the bottom where it's probably going to be a little more humid. So, about
Yeah, so
2/3 up.
I always say now, I will say that's where mine is in this bioactive, but it's really not. That's where I just decided to put it when I first put it up there. But I kind of feel like it's worthless to me. I know what the humidity is approximately in there, so I don't even really look at those hygrometer thermometers anymore. But and I didn't think about this when I placed it originally, but because the snake is never 1/3 up the enclosure, they're on the ground, unless they're climbing. I have a lot of snakes in tubs here, and their thermometer hygrometer just gets tossed in there.
Right.
And that's where they're at, I've got a snake crawling around my
I see that. That's funny.
when I do my live streams, I'm usually wearing a hat with a heavy brim because the snakes like to climb up on the hats. And
Oh, cool.
that's
That's
You
very
mentioned-
interesting looking.
You mentioned,
yeah, they like to explore. She's just coming around.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Um,
look at that.
you mentioned the tubs, and I noticed that in the videos I watched, and I don't think I'd ever seen anybody, not anything wrong or not being critical, but I thought that was really cool that you were keeping them in the tubs. And the drawers used to bother me, the slide in and out drawers because there's so much small space. But that's in the wild, ball pythons like to hang out down in their burrows and, I guess come up and look for food at night, but they don't get that, I guess. They just get the food brought to them. So I do keep all of mine in, in tanks or.
Yeah, I mean mine. I have racks for a lot of my snakes because I keep quite a bit, but I enrich them all. They all have fake plants and wood and different things, and I change out their enrichment all the time so they have new and novel things. And I also let them all out. Like I have a playpen for the small ones that can roam around, and they have different things that they can interact with each time they're in the playpen. My bigger snakes can roam the house. So they get a lot of enrichment. They're not just in their tub the whole time. But that being said, there are a lot of really big breeders that have very healthy snakes that just live in a tub their whole life. I just don't keep them that way. I think everybody keeps their animals differently, and I choose to keep mine as enriched as possible.
I really thought that was cool how you took the time to video forget the snake's name, but you saw it, you looked over and saw it was out of its hide, and that usually doesn't do that, and you had the lid off, and so you started to video it, and you actually put your hand in there, and it didn't immediately go away. The scenario I'm talking about?
Yeah. That was in last week's video. That was with Ron, who incidentally is Dolly. This is Dolly, by the way. Dolly and Tiger Lily's father is Ron.
Oh.
And Ron's a little bit more shy, and so I was just doing a thing that I do with a lot of my snakes that are a little more shy, where I just sort of sit near them with their tub open. And Ron just never comes out of his hide, so I rarely do it with him. And I happened to be sitting there actually writing that video. I was writing my bullet points for that video, and I looked over and noticed that he was out of his hide. So I pulled that. My tubs are all clear, so I can see in there. So I just opened it and sat next to him, and he was nervous. It's not something he ever encounters. Usually if I open the tub, I either just change his water and leave, or I pull him out for interaction. And this time I wasn't doing either of those things. So he's kind of like, oh my God, what's going on here?
Is that playpen for one snake at a time, or do you?
Well, it depends on the snakes. If they're young, like it's a playpen for a dog basically. And at this size, I put 3 or 4 in at once with a bunch of hides and a bunch of foliage and maybe a ball that they can crawl through, one of those holy roller balls that have the holes in them. And if it's, if they're babies, I can put an entire clutch in there or more, and they just cruise around. They just ignore each other,
Huh. So many people tell me not to put my ball pythons together.
Well, don't keep them together.
Right. Just let them have time together.
Yeah. I mean, they can't, they don't even have, when you put them in a playpen, or if I let 3 or 4 snakes out to roam around, they ignore one another. They might end up piled up in the same spot because of the security. They prefer the security or whatever. For instance, I had 2 adult females stacked on top of one another. But I have a mirror over here. It's like a stand-up mirror, and they all like to be behind the mirror. And because they both wanted to be there at the same time, they were stacked up. But it's not because they're pals, like they could care less about one another. It's just that they both wanted to be there at the same time. So they just don't really interact. The only thing that I stay away from is I don't put adult males and adult females out in the house together, because I don't want breeding behavior to happen.
You mean you don't want breeding behavior, random snakes? You want to pick who's breeding?
Well, that's right. And also, if snakes are locked up, they could be locked up for 36 hours, 48 hours, and you can't unlock them. You don't want to separate them. So I would have to just leave them be wherever they're at until they unlock. And I don't want to do that. Plus, breeding behavior starts with them scenting their enclosure. This female, especially, scenting the enclosure, just peeing everywhere. And I don't want that to happen.
Not in your house.
Snakes are, for those watching that don't know snakes well, one of the cool things about snakes is they don't defecate very often, like maybe once every 6 weeks for a lot of snakes. And they don't pee constantly either. So I'm rarely, even though I let mine out and they cruise around, I'm rarely cleaning up after them. It's usually they do it in their own enclosure, which is
My
nice.
My corn snakes pile up like that. They're always doing that. Always.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. This is so interesting for me because I have 25 reptiles and I don't have any snakes.
Oh wow.
So this is very interesting. I have like Uromastyx, blue-tongued skinks, bearded dragons, geckos,
Cool.
And a mountain dragon. I love my mountain dragon.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of lizards, and I actually was more of a lizard person before I became a snake person. I've had lots of lizards throughout my life, but because I'm a touring comedian, I don't I can't have an animal that has to eat every day,
Right.
So,
Right.
Do you have a YouTube channel or someplace that your comedy is located that we could see it?
No, well, I've got a bunch of my stuff. I've got like TV appearances and a bunch of old stand-up comedy that's just randomly all over the internet. If you search my name, but the show that I do now is a very specialized show at like Renaissance festivals that's in character. It's comedy, but I also juggle flaming battle axes and
oh my gosh,
up blades that I set on fire and stuff like that. So it's a crazy show that I try to keep off the internet. People try off of you because it's a show I've written. Like if I go and do stand up, I might do random different things here and there. But this show is a written show that I change each year a little bit, but I want to keep it.
Oh, that's all cool
for the audience.
Is there a snake or a reptile that you have ever had that you rehomed? You wished you hadn't, or
that I regretted? Well, when I was, I didn't regret it at the time, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. When I was in high school, I had 2 iguanas, and iguanas are terrible pets.
Yeah, high maintenance.
Yeah, they just are. And you can have an iguana that's really we're talking about green iguanas. There's different types, but green iguanas. You can have an iguana that's really nice and hangs out on your shoulder and is lovely, and then all of a sudden it gets to be 2 years old, and now it wants to kill you. Mm-hmm. They're just awful. And I should. It's not that they're awful. They just take a lot. You've got to have massive enclosures if you want to keep them correctly. And
we call them the horrible teen years. The same thing with tegu.
Yeah.
These periods. It's just
tegus are much
when they get past it.
Right. That's the thing. An iguana doesn't necessarily get past it. Tegus are actually great animals. They're great pets, you know.
I would love a tegu, black and white tegu.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Dragon Lair, I haven't done the Georgia Ren Fair. I try to stay as close to the West Coast as possible. I do Texas Ren Fair some years, although I'm not this year. But other than that, I stay West Coast so that I can be back in LA during the week. Where can we catch your comedy show? You know, I'm basically done for the season. I have 2 more small festivals in California that I'm doing, and then I'm done. But you know, I do a lot of the Ren fairs. If you're on the West Coast, ask me, and I'll tell you, you know, what I do that's near your house. But I do a lot in Washington and Oregon, a bunch all through California. But as far as regular stand-up comedy, the only place that I just do a regular normal stand-up comedy show is just in LA occasionally when somebody asks me to come and do a show.
Cool.
I used to tour comedy clubs and colleges and stuff and just do a normal stand-up show without the ridiculous juggling. And the problem is I work in TV and film also, and it just kept me on the road. You know, when you're doing comedy clubs, you play Thursday through Sunday, and then on Monday you travel to the next club. And if you're also trying to do auditions and work in Los Angeles, it takes you out of LA for too long. So I learned that these fairs, I can go and do a festival for a weekend and then be back in LA. So that's what it is now.
Wow. Cool.
Do you ever come up to Chico, California, or close to?
Trying to think of where Chico is. I know Chico so well. I mean, as far as the name, but I can't. It's you know, Chico. I think Chico's like middle of the state, maybe. Jenny, yeah, I might be able to get Delilah. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I probably am somewhere around Chico, but I can't picture where it is. Delilah. Oh, so that's Freya. The mama to the young snake that I'm holding is Freya, and I can't bring her out right now because all my equipment is set up right in front of her tub. But I can bring out Ron, old Ronald. That's the
I think
dad.
we got time for one more, right, Bob?
Yep. I've just noticed we're right at an hour. So.
Oh yeah, is that what you guys try to keep it at? Is an hour?
Well, yeah, we don't have to get off, but you know, you get tired of being the guest, especially. We would talk to you all night. So.
I'll just show you Ron real quick.
Beautiful.
That's the dad. And the cool thing about Ron, he's got a guitar on his head. His head stamp. His head stamp is a guitar.
That's so
Isn't that
cool.
Oh wow!
Isn't that great? So he's got a gene called spot nose, which gives them a head stamp that's similar to this. And a lot of times it looks like a cow's hoof print. But in Ron's case, and also his daughter here, she has a guitar head stamp too. It's not as prominent, but you can kind of see it.
Yep.
So the head stamps that he's giving to his offspring when they get the spot nose gene looks like a guitar, which is pretty cool.
It is cool. I had a question, and unless somebody has another, it'll be my last. Besides your YouTube videos, is there any way that you publicize your information about behavior with the snakes?
Instagram. I try to keep up on Instagram. I do little short videos on there. A lot of times those are just funny little videos, you know, but sometimes it's a bit of interesting information that I'm not going to make a full video about, but I can do it like in 15 seconds on an Instagram reel.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. And his Instagram is in the description as well as his YouTube channel, guys. And that's how I got you, was on Instagram. So.
oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. If you just search Green Room Pythons in both Instagram and YouTube, you'll find me. And you know, I try to do videos on all kinds of stuff. I have a series of genetics videos. I should probably do another one because I haven't done one in a while. But you know, there's a new video every week on the channel. Lately, I've been doing 3 produced videos in 1 live stream. People seem to like the live streams.
Right.
Keith, yeah, Dolly is growing. Yeah, look at this, the size difference. This is the 1-year-old daughter. You know, males tend to be smaller, but also we tend to keep them smaller a little bit because they don't need to be big, fat females, you know. But Keith, I'm working on, I don't know if you were here when I said this earlier, but I'm working on a 1-year update video for this entire clutch. So we're going to compare some sizes. It's pretty interesting.
All right. Anything else, Chad or panel?
No, this was so good. This was so
Yes, yeah.
informative. Thank you.
All right. Be sure to
Thanks
go
for having
over-
me on, you guys. I really
Oh.
appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
Thank you so much.
This is great.
Thank you so much. And be sure and go over and check out Bob's Instagram and his YouTube channel. You'll
Yep.
be delighted, I tell you, if you like reptiles at all. And even if you don't, it's very entertaining. So, and
Yeah, I
Thanks
thank-
know.
very much. I appreciate that.
I've got a bunch of videos to watch now.
there you go.
Yeah, I know,
Well,
right?
let me know what you think about the brother. Yeah.
I think I'll be able to relate to your brother.
Yeah.
Kent is a fan favorite. I have a lot of people that are not snake people that watch the videos every week and are subscribed
For
because
Ken.
they want to see Kent. So
That's awesome.
All right. Thank you, Bob, so much. We appreciate you.
thanks, you guys.
Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us, and thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
panel.
Peace out.
Thank you, mods.
Bye, everybody.